Welcome to the Grim Report, your gateway to the world of the strange and unexplained. I'm your host, Sydney Vale, and every week we dive deep into the eerie, the mysterious, and the downright chilling. Echoes of a past life, my daughter's unspoken memories. The night my daughter was born, something unsettling happened. It was 3 a.m. and a nurse had come in to check her vitals. After finishing, she handed my daughter back to me and said something strange. "I see many babies on this job. I can see in your daughter's eyes that she has been here before." I just stared at her, confused. There was an awkward pause, and then the nurse quickly added, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that." She left the room, but her words lingered in my mind. It spooked me, but oddly, part of me understood what it meant. 3 years later, I took my daughter grocery shopping. It was right after COVID, and we hadn't been out much. Grocery shopping with my mother had always been a special memory for me as a child, and I wanted to create that experience with my own daughter. My mother had passed away over 20 years ago, and I have never mentioned her to my daughter. She was only 3. On the way home, I asked, "Did you enjoy shopping with Dada?" She smiled and said, "I always like shopping with you, Dada. When you were little, I took you shopping. You were in my stomach and I took care of you. And now you take care of me." I was so shocked I had to pull the car over. Trying to process what she just said, I asked, "You took care of me? How?" She just laughed and said, "You are my baby, Dada." Later that night, I asked her to tell me more about when I was her little boy. She looked at me, dead serious, and said, "I don't want to talk about that anymore." And that was the end of that. A year later, during dinner, she asked if we used to live in another house. I told her no. This has always been our home since she was born. She frowned, clearly confused. "We did. We used to live in another house, I remember. It was yellow, and it looked like this." She motioned with her hands, tracing zigzag shapes in the air. My stomach dropped. The house I grew up with my mother was yellow, and it had 2 prominent gables, just like the motion she made. She had never seen a photo of that house. When she was around 5, one night she suddenly stood up in bed, insisting she had something important to tell me. "Your mom is this old," she said, stretching her arms wide. "And you're only this old," she continued, holding her palms close together. "Do you understand, Dada? She's so big, and you're still a baby." I asked her why she wanted to tell me this and how she knew, and she said, "It's inside me and needed to come out." Before I could ask more, she added, "When you're sad, if you want, you can call me Judy. It's okay if you want to." My mom's name was Judy. Now she's 6, and lately she started calling me by my childhood nickname. No one has called me that since I was a kid. Sometimes I'll ask her, "Why do you call me that? I'm your dad." She always responds matter-of-factly, "That's your name. That's what I want to call you." I'm still skeptic, but these moments, they stay with me. Shadows of the circus grounds. I've always been a skeptic when it comes to the paranormal. Sure, I've had a few odd experiences here and there, but I chalk them up to an overactive imagination. However, one incident about 5 years ago still haunts me, and despite my disbelief, it might have been something more. My ex and I were stubborn, determined people, so stubborn that we decided to build our own house with minimum help from subcontractors. The land we chose was unique, with an eerie history. In the early 1900s, the property belonged to a famous circus owner. There had been a hotel, a water tower, and a grand fountain on the grounds. But by the time we purchased it, only the fountain and the old hotel's basement remained. Our portion of the land included crumbling pillars and a concrete wall hidden deep into the woods. During construction, we bought a camper to live in, figuring we'd save some money on rent. We handled most of the work ourselves, even digging the trench for underground power without help. It was a long, grueling process, and we roped our younger brothers with the promise of beer, pizza, and a little cash. One night, we were all digging into the late hours, trying to finish the trench to the power pole. I needed to use the bathroom, so I ran into the dark house. The plumbing was working, so I chose to use the toilet, where instead of filling up the camper's tank. I didn't bother bringing my phone or flashlight. I just left the front door open so a little light from our work area could spill inside. As I sat there, the front door slowly creaked shut, plunging me into darkness. I froze. "Hey, I'm in here," I called out, assuming it was one of the guys messing with me. No answer, just the faint sound of footsteps approaching the bathroom. "This isn't funny," I shouted, thinking my ex-D was playing a prank. The footsteps grew closer until they stopped right outside the bathroom door. "Stop, please, I really don't like this. It's not funny," I pleaded, my heart pounding. "D, for real, stop." A soft chuckle floated through the darkness. Angry and scared, I grabbed the nearest thing, a roll of toilet paper, and threw it in the direction of the door. It hit the floor with a dull thud. "D, please, you're really scaring me." Nothing, just silence. Panic set in. There was no way I was walking out of that bathroom. Instead, I scrambled out a small window above the toilet, scraping my arm as I squeezed through. I didn't care. I just needed to get out of that house. I ran around to the front, where the guys were still digging in the light. "That wasn't funny, D," I shouted, tears stinging my eyes. "What wasn't?" he asked, looking genuinely confused. Everyone else stopped what they were doing and stared at me, clearly oblivious. It hit me then. No one had been in the house. The door, the footsteps, the chuckle, all of it had happened, but none of them had been involved. After that, strange things continued to happen. The front door would lock us out for no reason, even after we changed the locks multiple times. We ended up leaving a spare key hidden outside after getting locked out late one night with no phone or keys. Once, I woke up in the middle of the night to find a dark figure staring at the edge of our bed. Another time, we heard someone whistling a soft, eerie tune during the bonfire. I still don't know what happened on the property, but the combination of those events makes me question my skepticism. Maybe there's something lingering out there, something from the past that refused to leave. But even now, I still try to deny it, because, after all, admitting it would mean accepting that I might have lived among ghosts. The day the shower curtain moved on its own. It was a regular afternoon, around 3 p.m. I was home alone, getting ready to take a shower. I hadn't undressed yet, and I was just reaching behind the shower curtain to get the water started. Realizing I forgot to grab a clean towel, I turned my back to the shower, with the curtain still closed, and walked maybe about 10 feet to the hallway closet to grab one from the bottom shelf. That's when I heard it, the faint, familiar jingle of metal. Slowly, I looked up and turned my head towards the bathroom. My heart stopped. The shower curtain, which had been fully closed, was now pulling itself open, slowly and smoothly, as if someone invisible was deliberately sliding along the rod. It kept going until it reached the very end and stopped. I swear, in that moment, my scalp felt like it shrunk. My body froze, and I could feel my heart racing. It wasn't night, but broad daylight at 3 p.m., which somehow made it worse, because it was not supposed to happen during the day. I forced myself to take a deep breath, and I walked back to the bathroom. Standing there, hands on my hips, I stared at the curtain, trying to process what I just witnessed. Then, it happened again. Slowly, the curtain began to slide back, this time in reverse. I just stood there, wide-eyed, and caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. Pale as a ghost, no worse. I looked like a banshee, skin almost translucent with fear. Instinct kicked in. I backed out of the bathroom slowly, never taking my eyes off the curtain, and shut the door behind me. But just as I was trying to figure out how in the world any of this could be happening, the entire shower rod and curtain came crashing down into the tub. That was it. I bolted. I don't know how, but I flew down 14 steps of the staircase, never touching one, straight out the front door and into the driveway. From there, I could see the small bathroom window above, and I dreaded looking up. Something inside me was certain I'd see someone, or something, standing there. But nothing. No figure, no shadows, just the empty window. I wasn't just scared. I was buzzing with a strange mix of fear and excitement. I mean, no way did that just happen, right? Laughing nervously to myself, I decided to take a walk down the road to check the mail, just to clear my head. When I came back, my mom had returned home. Relieved, I rushed inside, eager to tell her what happened. But before I could say a word, she jumped when she saw me. "When did you go outside?" she asked, her face pale. "I didn't see you go out the door. I thought you were still upstairs." I blinked. "Mom, I have to tell you what just happened while you were gone." But she kept staring at me, unsettled. "I saw you," she insisted, "upstairs in the bathroom. You waved at me from the window." Goosebumps shot down my arms as she said it. I hadn't been upstairs since I bolted down those stairs. Whatever she saw, it wasn't me. My mom, braver than I was, went back upstairs to investigate. She yanked the fallen shower rod and curtain out of the tub, inspecting everything as she could make sense of it. I stood there, nodding along, just like we could figure this out logically. But we both knew something strange had happened. The incident never repeated itself. When I tell people this story, they always laugh and say, "No way." They don't want to believe it, but it happened. And it could happen to you too. The Haunting of the Spooky House. My dad's chilling encounters. My dad grew up on dairy farms in Australia, hopping between them as his parents managed different properties for farm owner. In his late teens to early 20s, they moved into a place that became known as the Spooky House. From the moment they arrived, the house gave off an unsettling vibe. It was a foreboding feeling that none of them could quite explain. The floor was old wood, and my Nan, Dad's mom, had to put little stoppers in the holes to keep out the wind. But every morning they'd find the stoppers pushed up, as if something beneath the house was forcing them out. There were heavy, hippie-style beads hanging in the doorways, the kind that would only move if a strong gust of wind blew through. Yet, Dad said he'd often find them swaying when he got up early for work, like someone or something had passed through them. When he checked the bedrooms, everyone would be fast asleep. As time passed, the strange happenings worsened, like the house didn't want them there. It came to a head when my Nan contacted a psychic, hoping for some help. But the psychic refused to even get out of her car. She wouldn't set foot near the house and told my Nan they needed to move. Then she drove off, leaving Nan completely dumbfounded. Soon after, things began stalking the house. To this day, my dad has no idea what they were and doesn't care to find out. Each morning, Nan would find the grass trampled down around the house, particularly near the windows. Her pig basket on the clothesline would be shredded to bits, scattered everywhere. And then the scratching started. Dad would be woken up at night by the sound of something scratching at his window. He never dared to look, knowing that whatever was making that noise was on the other side, staring back at him. In the morning, they'd find paint scratched off the house, about human height, and the grass flattened below the windows. Things got even more serious one night when my granddad was out working in the fields. Nan woke Dad up in a panic, and they huddled together in his bedroom, too scared to move as something stalked the house outside. Dad himself was stalked once. It was around 4 a.m., and he was walking across a few paddocks to help with the cows. As he walked, he heard the distant sounds of footsteps, crunch, crunch, following him in the frost-covered grass. He stopped, and the sound stopped. He started walking again, and so did the footsteps. Finally, he stopped once more, but this time, the footsteps didn't stop. They were coming right at him. Terrified, Dad bolted across 2 paddocks, clearing fences in a sprint, until he reached his dad. When his parents were away, Dad would throw parties at the house with his friends. But no matter how many people were there, by the end of the night, everyone would end up huddled in one room to sleep. No one ever wanted to be alone in that house. One night, Dad and his cousin were playing in the pool and drinking when around midnight, a dark figure appeared and told them, "Go to bed." Both of them, drunk and tired, decided to listen. The next morning, Dad's cousin asked who the person standing over their beds had been, watching them as they slept. Dad had no memory of it. There's more to the story, but this is already long. Eventually, my dad and his family moved out, and another family moved in. Not long after that, the house burned to the ground. No one knew what the cause of the fire was, but Dad was just glad it was gone. Best friends beyond, how my late mother watches over our son. My mom passed away 32 years ago, yet somehow she and our toddler are best friends. My mother was killed in an act of domestic violence when I was just 4 years old. She was stabbed multiple times and died on the scene. She's been dead, as often as I say, gone from this world for over 3 decades. But despite that, I've always felt her presence. It's like she's still with me, watching over my family and me. In our home, we keep a shrine for her, and I talk to her every day. We leave an empty seat for her at the table during holidays and family dinners. I say good morning and good night to her, and I always feel her presence in my life. Our son is almost 4 now, the same age I was when my mom passed away. When he was younger, he slept through the night without any nightmares or night terrors. He was remarkably a peaceful sleeper. As he grew older and began to learn more about family, I told him about his Nana. I explained that she lived far away, but could visit us in my dreams and memories. Then one day he told me that Nana visits him too. He said she's there whenever he has a bad dream, comforting him, just like she used to do for me. He described her perfectly. She looks like you, but with shorter hair. My mom did have shorter hair, and I've always worn mine long. When I showed him a picture of her, he lit up. "That's Nana!" he exclaimed, happy to put a face to the figure he saw at night. He said she stands over him when he's scared, telling him everything will be okay, just like she did for me when my dad would come home drunk and violent. Curious, I checked the baby camera, and sure enough, I saw him waking up from a bad dream, turning to look at something, or someone, that I couldn't see. But he wasn't scared. He seems comforted. He said Nana talks to him, tells him she loves him, loves me, loves all of us. She tells him that soon he'll only see her in his memories, just like I do. Now, whenever he sees Nana, he lets us know, and every time we check the camera and see him nodding or looking towards something invisible, quietly reassured by her presence. We don't have any other strange experiences. Sometimes, when I talk to my husband about my mom, her necklace will move slightly, even though there is no breeze. Occasionally, our son's toys will be moved or my husband's office supplies will be misplaced. It's always small things, like finding a pen on the floor when he swears it was in his cup holder, or a spice jar out of place on the rack. I don't really believe in ghosts, but when these little things happen, I like to think my mom is sending her love. Whenever I'm putting something back where it belongs, I always whisper, "Thanks, Mom. I love you too." Because deep down, I believe it's her, watching over us, taking care of us, just like she always did.
Whispers in the dark corners of my mind. Shadow stands where light can't seem to find. I hear footsteps but nobody's there. Cold chills creeping through